The dining room was a cacophony of clinking silverware and muffled laughter, a space where familial warmth was supposed to prevail. Instead, the air hung heavy with tension, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I could feel the weight of my son's gaze, sharp and unyielding, as he leaned back in his chair, a smirk plastered across his face. The table was adorned with a lavish spread, yet my appetite had vanished, replaced by a gnawing unease that twisted my stomach into knots. As I glanced around the room, the vibrant colors of the freshly cooked dishes seemed to mock me. The roast chicken glistened under the soft glow of the chandelier, but all I could focus on was the envelope hidden beneath my lap, its contents a bitter reminder of my past. My son's laughter pierced through the haze of my thoughts, a taunting melody that echoed in my mind. "You're nothing without your father, Mom." His words cut deeper than any knife, and the laughter that followed felt like daggers aimed straight at my heart. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, a mixture of humiliation and anger swirling within me. How could he not see the sacrifices I had made? Each laugh that erupted from the table felt like a personal affront, a reminder that I was losing my grip on the respect I had fought so hard to maintain. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped the edge of the table, my knuckles turning white. The faces of my family, once familiar and comforting, now felt foreign, as if they were all in on a joke I had yet to understand. In that moment, I remembered the countless evenings spent building a life for us, the laughter that had once filled our home, now replaced by this disturbing mockery. The sound of my son's laughter morphed into a haunting echo, a reminder of how far we had drifted apart. I had been silent for too long, my heart heavy with the weight of my unspoken thoughts. What had happened to the son who once looked up to me? Did he not realize that my identity was not solely defined by his father's absence? As the laughter subsided, I caught my best friend Sarah's eye from across the table. Her expression mirrored my own confusion and disappointment, her brow furrowed in concern. I could sense her silent encouragement, urging me to reclaim my voice, to break free from the chains of humiliation that bound me. My internal struggle raged on. Part of me wanted to lash out, to reclaim my authority, while another part feared the consequences of such a confrontation. I took a deep breath, inhaling the rich aroma of the food around me, grounding myself in the moment. The envelope felt heavier than ever, a physical manifestation of my secrets and my truth. I had a decision to make: allow my son's mockery to define me, or stand up and confront him, ready to unveil the truth that lay hidden within that envelope. My heart raced as I weighed my options, the room's atmosphere thick with anticipation. This was no longer just a family dinner, it was a battleground for my dignity, a moment that could change everything. I could feel the resolve building within me, pushing aside the confusion and humiliation that had plagued me for too long. I would not be reduced to a punchline. I would reclaim my worth, not only for myself, but for the son who had strayed too far from the love we once shared. As I prepared to speak, a sense of clarity washed over me, and I knew that whatever happened next, I was ready to face it. This evening would mark a turning point, not just in my relationship with my son, but in my journey to reclaim my identity as a mother, a woman, and a force to be reckoned with. The dining room felt like a stage set for a tragedy, adorned with family photos that lined the walls, each frame capturing moments of joy now overshadowed by the tension in the air. The scent of roasted chicken lingered, mingling with the faint aroma of the floral centerpiece, creating an unsettling contrast to the unease that gripped my heart. My fingers brushed over the envelope resting in my lap, its presence a heavy reminder of the truth I had concealed, a truth that felt like a ticking clock, counting down to a moment I could no longer avoid. As I sat there, a wave of sadness washed over me, pulling me back to memories of my husband, the laughter we once shared at this very table. I could almost hear his voice, echoing in my mind, urging me to stand tall against the tide of mockery that threatened to drown me. But here I was, feeling small and insignificant, my son's laughter ringing in my ears like a cruel symphony. "You're nothing without your father." His words replayed like a haunting refrain, amplifying the ache of humiliation that settled deep within my chest. I glanced around the table, searching for a sign of support, but all I found were faces painted with indifference, their eyes reflecting the easy comfort of ignorance. Mark, my partner, sat across from me, his expression a mixture of concern and helplessness. He had always been there, a steadfast figure in my life, yet in moments like this, his presence felt like a mere shadow, unable to pierce through the fog of my despair. I could sense Sarah's gaze, her worried eyes seeking mine, silently urging me to reclaim my voice, yet I hesitated, trapped in the web of my own thoughts. My heart thudded in my chest, a steady drumbeat of anger mingled with fear. Was I really nothing without my husband? The question gnawed at me, shattering the fragile confidence I had built over the years. With every laugh that erupted around the table, I felt my resolve slip further away, as if my dignity were a fragile balloon, slowly deflating under the weight of their mockery. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, a sharp contrast to the chill of self-doubt that enveloped me. The envelope felt like a lead weight, pressing down on my lap, reminding me that I held the power to change the narrative. It was a reminder of the sacrifices I had made, of the strength I had shown in the face of adversity. I had spent years building a life, nurturing my son, and yet here I was, faced with the stark realization that he saw me as weak. How could he not understand the complexities of my identity? I was more than just a widow. I was his mother, a woman forged by her experiences, and I refused to let him strip me of that truth. As the laughter subsided, I felt the shift in the room, a palpable tension that crackled like static electricity. I could feel my heart racing, each beat echoing in my ears as I prepared to confront my son. The memory of his laughter morphed into a catalyst for my anger, fueling my determination to reclaim my dignity. I had to remind him of the woman I was, the one who had fought to keep our family together after losing everything. Taking a deep breath, I steadied myself, feeling the weight of the envelope in my lap. It was time to unveil the truth, to shatter the facade that had been built around my identity. I could feel the resolve solidifying within me, a fire igniting in the depths of my soul. This was my moment, the turning point I had been waiting for. I would not allow my son's mockery to define me any longer. It was time to reclaim my authority, to stand up for the woman I had become, and to remind him that I was not just a punchline in his cruel joke. In that moment, as the silence stretched around us, I knew what I had to do. I would confront my son, and I would do it with the strength and dignity that had been buried beneath layers of humiliation. The envelope was more than just a piece of paper. It was the key to my identity, the catalyst for change, and I was ready to face whatever came next. The laughter that filled the room echoed with a piercing sharpness, making my insides twist. It was almost unbearable, like the sound of knives clattering on plates, each clang a reminder of my son's cruel words. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage as I glanced at the faces around the table. They were all there, pretending to enjoy the meal, as if my humiliation was merely a side dish in the feast of family togetherness. The clinking of silverware faded into a dull roar, and I felt my hands clench tighter around the envelope hidden in my lap, its weight pressing down as if it were a physical manifestation of my shame. As I sat there, memories of my husband flooded my mind. I could almost hear his voice, soothing and steady, grounding me amidst the storm brewing in my heart. We had shared this table countless times, laughter and love filling the air, yet now it felt like a battlefield. I remembered the way he would look at me, pride shining in his eyes as if I were capable of conquering the world. But that was before my son's jeering laughter shattered the remnants of my self-worth. With each mocking chuckle that erupted from my son, I felt myself retreat further into my shell, an instinctive response to the humiliation that clawed at my throat. I could taste the bitterness of resentment on my tongue, and it ignited a flame of anger deep within me. How dare he belittle me? How could he not see the sacrifices I had made? I was no longer just a woman mourning her husband. I was a mother, a pillar of strength, yet he chose to strip me of that identity. Mark, sitting directly opposite me, glanced up from his plate, concern etched across his features. I could see him wrestling with his own helplessness, trapped between wanting to defend me and fearing the fallout that might ensue. His brow furrowed slightly, and I wished he would say something, anything, to break the tension. But I knew this was my battle, and I had to fight it alone. The silence hung heavy, thickening the air as I weighed my options, the envelope in my lap feeling almost like a ticking time bomb. My son's laughter echoed once more, sharper this time, and I felt something within me snap. The warmth of humiliation was replaced by a cold wave of determination. I would not allow him to define me any longer. I had spent too long in the shadows, suffocated by his arrogance. The envelope felt like a lifeline, a symbol of the truth that could shatter the facade he had built around my identity. I glanced down at the envelope, the crisp edges pressing into my skin, reminding me of the secrets it contained. It was time to unveil the truth, to show my son that I was more than just a punchline in his cruel jokes. A rush of adrenaline surged through me, and I took a deep breath, inhaling the rich aroma of roasted chicken that filled the dining room. The scent was almost comforting, yet it only fueled my resolve. I was ready to confront him. With my heart racing, I pushed my chair back, the sound of wood scraping against the floor cutting through the laughter. The room fell silent, all eyes turning towards me, their expressions a mix of surprise and curiosity. I felt the weight of their gazes, but I didn't falter. I locked eyes with my son, holding his gaze steady. "Enough," I declared, my voice stronger than I felt. It echoed through the room, a ripple of shock dancing across their faces. My son's smirk faltered, replaced by a look of confusion. I could feel the heat rising to my cheeks, but this time it was not from embarrassment. It was from something deeper, something more powerful. "You think it's funny to mock me? To say I'm nothing without your father?" My voice trembled, but I pressed on, each word fueled by the anger I had kept bottled up for too long. "You don't know the sacrifices I've made, the battles I've fought to keep this family together. You see me as weak, but I am not. I am your mother, and I deserve your respect." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the wheels turning in my son's mind, his expression shifting from defiance to bewilderment. My heart raced, anticipation coursing through me as I slid the envelope across the table, the crisp paper gliding over the polished surface. "What's this?" he asked, his tone laced with skepticism, but I could see the flicker of curiosity in his eyes. "Open it and you'll see the truth for yourself," I replied, my voice steady. I could feel the tension in the room, the air thick with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. The family dynamics had shifted, the power balance teetering on the edge of a precipice. I watched as he reached for the envelope, hesitating for a brief moment. My breath caught in my throat. This was the moment I had been waiting for. As he pulled out the contents, I could sense the unease that enveloped the room. I had taken the first step to reclaim my authority, and I knew that whatever came next would change everything. This was not just about proving my worth to him, it was about reminding myself of the strength I possessed. I had been silent for too long, but now I was ready to speak my truth, to rise from the ashes of humiliation and reclaim my identity. The laughter that had once filled the room felt distant now, replaced by a heavy silence that hung in the air, thick with anticipation. I had crossed a line and there was no turning back. My heart raced as I prepared for the fallout, knowing that this was only the beginning of my journey to reclaim my dignity and authority. The envelope lay heavily in my lap, an anchor of truth amidst the swirling chaos of my emotions. I felt the anxiety rise within me like a tidal wave, cresting with the weight of all my unspoken words. My son's laughter still reverberated in my ears, a cruel reminder that I was not merely facing him, but the very perception of myself I had fought to uphold. I glanced across the table at Sarah, her eyes wide with concern, silently urging me to push through the fear that gripped my heart. We had always shared an understanding, a bond that allowed her to read my thoughts without uttering a single word. Yet here I was, caught in the web of my son's mockery, battling my own inner demons. The table was cluttered with remnants of our dinner, but my appetite was long gone, replaced by a fierce resolve to reclaim my dignity. I could feel the tension in the air, thick and electric, as if the very fabric of our family was fraying at the seams. I remembered how it felt to stand tall, to be respected and valued, not just as his mother but as a woman in her own right. The laughter that had once filled our home had morphed into a jarring cacophony that drowned out my voice. It was time to change that narrative. With every beat of my heart, I felt the determination building within me, a fire that had been kindled by years of silence and shame. "Sarah, I need your help," I whispered, leaning closer to her, my voice barely above a hush, the words escaping my lips like a fragile promise. She nodded, her expression unwavering as she leaned in, her presence a balm to my frayed nerves. "We need to plan how I'm going to confront him. I can't let this continue." Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of empathy and encouragement. "What do you want to say?" she asked, her tone gentle yet firm, as if she were guiding me through a labyrinth of my own making. I took a deep breath, the scent of roasted chicken still lingering heavily in the air. Yet it felt distant, as if I were floating above the scene, detached from the reality of the moment. "I want him to understand that I'm more than just his mother. I want him to see me, to recognize the sacrifices I've made, and to respect me for who I am," I declared, feeling the words solidify my resolve. Each syllable resonated with the weight of my truth, and I knew I had to be brave. "The envelope holds the key to my past, my strength, and my identity," I continued, gripping it tightly as if it were a lifeline. "I need to show him that I am not defined by his perception or the absence of his father." As I spoke, I felt a sense of empowerment washing over me, each word a stepping stone towards the confrontation that lay ahead. Sarah's supportive smile reassured me, igniting a flicker of hope within my chest. "You can do this, Mia. Just remember that you're not alone in this fight. I'll be right here with you." Her words wrapped around me like a protective blanket, shielding me from the icy tendrils of fear that threatened to creep in. I could feel the seconds ticking away, each one a reminder that I was running out of time. The tension in the room was palpable, my family oblivious to the storm brewing within me. I glanced at my son, who was still engaged in casual banter with his cousins, a smirk etched on his face, as if he were unaware of the seismic shift about to occur. "Tonight is the night," I whispered to Sarah, my voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in my stomach. "I can't let this moment slip away. He needs to hear my truth." With each passing moment, the anger I had felt earlier transformed into a fierce determination. I could see the table set against the backdrop of my memories, a place filled with laughter and warmth, now tainted by mockery and disdain. It was time to reclaim that space, to turn it into a sanctuary of truth rather than a battleground of humiliation. As dinner came to a close, I felt a surge of adrenaline, my heart racing with anticipation. I could see the end of the evening approaching, the laughter dying down as plates were cleared. Mark glanced my way, concern evident in his eyes, but I knew I had to do this on my own. This was my fight, my moment to reclaim authority and respect. I stood up, the sound of my chair scraping against the floor commanding attention. The room fell silent, all eyes turning towards me, a mix of surprise and curiosity painting their faces. I took a deep breath, centering myself as I locked gazes with my son. His smirk faded, replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. "Enough!" I exclaimed, my voice firm and unwavering. The shocked expressions around the table mirrored my resolve, and in that moment I felt the tide starting to turn. "I refuse to be mocked any longer. You think it's funny to belittle me, to say I'm nothing without your father?" I continued, each word spilling out with the weight of years of unvoiced hurt. "You don't know the sacrifices I've made or the strength it took to keep this family together after losing everything." The truth hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. I slid the envelope across the table, my heart pounding as I watched his eyes widen, the curiosity mingling with the disbelief etched across his face. "Open it and you'll see the truth for yourself," I urged, my voice steady, a stark contrast to the chaos I felt inside. The moment had arrived, and I was ready to confront the very foundation of our relationship, to challenge the mockery that had threatened to tear us apart. As he reached for the envelope, I knew that whatever happened next would be the catalyst for change. No longer would I be just a punchline in his cruel jokes. I was ready to reclaim my identity and my power, revealing the woman I had become through years of struggle and resilience. This was my moment, and I would not shy away from it any longer. The atmosphere in the dining room felt charged with an unspoken tension after I had slid the envelope across the table. Silence hung thick in the air, wrapping around us like a suffocating blanket. My son's brow furrowed as he peered at the contents, and I could almost hear the gears turning in his mind. I felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. This was the moment I had fought for, yet it was also the precipice on which our relationship teetered. The once vibrant colors of the room now seemed muted, the floral centerpiece wilting under the weight of reality. As he slowly opened the envelope, I felt my heart race, a primal rhythm echoing the uncertainty that filled the space between us. The weight of the moment pressed heavily upon me, and I could see the flicker of disbelief dance in his eyes, a reflection of my own fear. I had spent years holding on to the truth, and now, as it lay bare before us, I worried about how it would shift the dynamics of our family forever. The laughter that had once filled this room felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the gravity of our confrontation. "What is this?" he asked, his voice tinged with confusion. I held my breath, my fingers gripping the edge of the table as I awaited his reaction. The atmosphere was thick with unspoken words, and I could feel Sarah's supportive presence from across the table, her eyes urging me to stay strong. I remembered her encouragement, the way she had pushed me to reclaim my voice, and I felt a surge of determination wash over me. "It's the truth about your father and me," I replied, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions inside me. The tension between us shifted, a current of vulnerability sparking as we both faced the reality of our fractured relationship. His expression softened for just a moment, a flicker of understanding breaking through the layers of arrogance that had shielded him. As he began to read, I recalled our shared history, the laughter and love that had once flowed freely between us. My mind drifted back to the countless evenings spent at this very table, where warmth and acceptance had prevailed. I longed for that connection again, for the bridge of understanding to be rebuilt between us. Yet I knew that this would not be an easy journey. Trust had been broken, and the wounds ran deep. The silence was deafening as he absorbed the contents of the envelope. I could see his expression shift, confusion giving way to a mix of anger and regret. My heart raced as I watched the emotions play out on his face, each flicker a reminder of the love we once shared. I had fought so hard to maintain my dignity, and now I stood on the edge of vulnerability, hoping to mend the rift that had formed between us. "You should have told me this before," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper, an echo of the pain that had lingered in the room. I felt a pang of guilt wash over me, realizing the weight of my silence had contributed to the distance between us. My heart ached at the thought of him feeling abandoned, as if I had let him down by not sharing my truth sooner. "I was afraid of how you would react, afraid of losing you completely," I admitted, my voice trembling with the weight of my confession. I took a deep breath, the scent of roasted chicken lingering in the air, a reminder of the family gatherings we had once enjoyed. "But I realize now that keeping it hidden only pushed us further apart. I want you to see me for who I am, not just as your mother, but as a woman who has fought through her own struggles." His gaze softened, and I could see the walls he had built beginning to crumble. This moment felt pivotal, a turning point in our relationship, and I clung to the hope that we could find a way back to each other. I reached across the table, my hand trembling slightly as I extended it toward him, an invitation to bridge the gap that had formed between us. For a moment he hesitated, his eyes searching mine for sincerity. I felt my pulse quicken, the anticipation palpable as I awaited his response. Would he take my hand, symbolizing a step toward reconciliation? Or would he retreat further into the shadows of anger and resentment? As he finally reached out, our fingers touched, and I felt a surge of warmth spread through me. It was a small gesture, yet it held the weight of so much more, an acknowledgement of our shared pain and a willingness to heal. In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope ignite within me, a promise that we could rebuild what had been lost. We had faced the truth together, and now it was time to move forward, to forge a new path defined by understanding and respect. The tension in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile sense of relief. I could see the flicker of compassion in his eyes, and it filled me with a renewed sense of purpose. We were still a family, bound by love even in our darkest moments, and I was determined to nurture that connection. As I sat there, a sense of closure washed over me, a quiet strength emerging from the depths of my soul. I had confronted my fears, revealed my truth, and in doing so I had taken a step toward reclaiming my identity. This was not the end of our journey, but rather the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would stand tall as both a mother and a woman, ready to embrace whatever came next. The weight of the envelope had been lifted, and in its place I felt a sense of freedom, a promise of healing and hope for the future. The moment stretched like a taut wire as I pushed the envelope across the table, my breath hitching in my throat. Each family member's gaze snapped to me, the silence enveloping us like a heavy fog, thick with anticipation and disbelief. I could feel my heart hammering against my ribcage, the weight of years of unspoken truths resting heavily on my shoulders. My son's eyes widened, a flicker of uncertainty breaking through the arrogance that usually colored his expression. I had crossed an invisible line, and with it came the realization that our world was on the brink of transformation. As the envelope slid to a halt before him, I felt the atmosphere shift, a palpable tension crackling like electricity in the air. The laughter that had filled the room just moments before faded into a haunting echo, replaced by a heavy silence that felt like a suffocating blanket. His brow furrowed in confusion as he hesitated, reaching for the envelope as if it were a fragile bird that might take flight at any moment. I held my breath, every second stretching interminably as I waited for him to unfold the truth that lay within. "What is this?" he finally asked, his voice low and laced with skepticism. I sensed the ripple of unease that washed over the table, the weight of my decision crashing down on us all. The family had gathered for what should have been a simple dinner, yet here we were, teetering on the edge of a revelation that could shatter the illusion of our harmonious facade. The air was thick with unspoken words, and I could see the flicker of curiosity in my son's eyes, battling against the denial that had been his shield. I leaned forward, my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions within me. "It's the truth about your father and me," I replied, my heart pounding as I watched him absorb my words. I remembered the nights spent in silence, hiding my pain behind a mask of normalcy, and I felt the surge of resolve build within me. This was my moment. I had to stand firm against the tide of mockery and reclaim my identity. As he began to read, I recalled the laughter that had once filled this room, the warmth of family gatherings now overshadowed by the shadows of our fractured relationship. I had spent years nurturing this family, yet it had taken only moments for my son to dismiss my worth. The tension in the room shifted, a current of vulnerability sparking between us as we both faced the reality of our distance. I had not just come to reveal a secret. I had come to reclaim my rightful place, to remind him that I was not just a punchline in his cruel jokes. With every word he read, I felt my resolve tighten around me like a comforting embrace. I remembered Sarah's encouragement, her unwavering belief in my strength. I had fought to keep our family together after losing everything, and now it was time for my son to understand that I was more than just his mother. I was a woman forged by my experiences, and I would no longer allow him to strip me of that truth. The silence hung heavy, a testament to the weight of my revelation. I could see the gears turning in my son's mind, the shift in his expression as he grappled with the reality of his misconceptions. The power dynamic was shifting, and with it came the possibility of redemption. I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my authority, and I was ready to face whatever came next. This moment would set the stage for the climax of our tangled relationship, and I was prepared to stand my ground, ready to embrace the truth that lay ahead. The envelope weighed heavily in my hands, each crease and fold a reminder of the truth I had kept hidden for far too long. As I sat in the quiet aftermath of our confrontation, the echoes of my son's laughter still reverberated in my mind, a cruel reminder of the mockery I had endured. I could feel the tension in the room linger, thick and suffocating, as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. My heart raced, not just from the confrontation but from the realization that I had reached a turning point. This was about more than just standing up for myself, it was about reclaiming my identity and my power. I glanced at Sarah, who was seated across from me, her expression a mix of concern and encouragement. The flickering candlelight cast shadowy patterns on her face, highlighting the sincerity in her eyes. I could sense her anticipation, her silent support wrapping around me like a warm embrace. "Mia, what's your plan?" she asked, her voice low but steady, pulling me back to the present. Taking a deep breath, I released the tension in my shoulders, feeling a flicker of clarity amidst the chaos. I needed to act to ensure that my son understood the depth of my sacrifices and the strength that lay within me. I had spent too long being belittled, and now it was time to shift the narrative. I want him to see the truth, not just about the envelope, but about me, who I am beyond his perception, I replied, my voice gaining strength with each word. As I spoke, memories flooded my mind, flashes of laughter and love from a time when our family felt whole. I remembered my husband's unwavering support, the way he would stand by my side in moments of crisis. Now, as I faced this new battle, I realized that I could channel that strength. I was not just a widow, I was a mother, a woman who had endured and triumphed against adversity. What if he doesn't react well? What if this only drives him further away? Sarah's voice broke through my thoughts, and I could see the worry etched on her features. I understood her fears, the stakes were high, and the potential for more pain was real. But I couldn't let fear dictate my actions any longer. I have to try, Sarah. I can't let him see me as weak. I need him to understand that I have my own identity, separate from his father's shadow. The envelope felt like a physical embodiment of my resolve, its weight grounding me as I prepared for the next steps. I envisioned the moment I would confront him again, this time armed with the truth and the knowledge of my worth. I'll tell him about the sacrifices I made, the years spent building a life for us. I'll show him that I am more than just his mother. I am a woman with a story, a strength that he has yet to see. I could feel a sense of determination rising within me, igniting a fire that had long been dormant. The thought of facing my son again filled me with a mix of anxiety and excitement. What would he say when confronted with the truth? Would he finally understand the depths of my struggles? Or would he continue to dismiss me, clinging to his misguided beliefs? With each passing moment, I felt clarity crystallizing in my mind. This was my moment to reclaim my authority, to show my son that I could not be reduced to a punchline in his cruel jokes. I had to be bold, to stand firm in my resolve, and to ensure that he understood the gravity of his words and actions. I will not let him belittle me again, I vowed, my voice steady with conviction. This ends with me. As I looked into Sarah's eyes, I saw the reflection of my own determination. I was not alone in this fight. I had a steadfast ally by my side. Together, we would navigate the tumultuous waters ahead, facing whatever consequences awaited. I felt ready to embrace the challenge, fueled by the desire to reclaim my dignity and my identity. The envelope was not just a piece of paper. It was a key to unlocking the truth, and I was prepared to face the storm that lay ahead, no matter the cost. The atmosphere in the family meeting room shifted, a palpable tension crackling in the air as I prepared to confront my son. The muted hues of the walls felt suffocating, and the faint scent of roasted chicken lingered, now a ghost of comfort rather than a source of solace. My heart raced, each beat echoing in the silence that enveloped us, amplifying the gravity of the moment. I could feel the weight of the envelope in my hands, a physical representation of the truth I had withheld for far too long. My son's gaze was fixed on me, a mixture of disbelief and defiance etched across his features. I could see the arrogance in his eyes, the smirk that had once infuriated me now replaced by a flicker of uncertainty. This was the moment I had been waiting for, a chance to reclaim my identity and assert my authority. The table between us felt like a chasm, yet I was determined to bridge it. Enough! My voice rang out, strong and steady, slicing through the tension like a knife. The room fell silent. I could feel the shock ripple through my family, their eyes wide with surprise. My son's expression shifted, the confident facade faltering as he leaned back slightly, as if bracing himself for what was to come. You think it's funny to mock me? To say I'm nothing without your father? I pressed on, my voice unwavering, fueled by years of suppressed anger. You don't understand the sacrifices I've made to keep our family together. You see me as weak, but I am not. With each word I spoke, I felt the energy in the room shift. The faces around the table were a mosaic of emotions, confusion, concern, and even curiosity. I could sense Sarah's unwavering support from across the table, her eyes locked onto mine, silently urging me to continue. The weight of my truth propelled me forward, and I slid the envelope across the polished surface, watching as it glided toward him like a ship setting sail into unknown waters. What's this? He asked, skepticism lacing his tone, but I could see the intrigue spark in his eyes. It was a flicker of curiosity, a crack in the armor he had built around himself. Open it and you'll see the truth for yourself, I replied, my heart pounding in my chest as I held my breath, anticipation coursing through me like electricity. His fingers trembled slightly as he reached for the envelope, the moment stretching out like an eternity. I could feel the tension building, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy in the air. Would he finally understand? Would he see me for who I truly was? I closed my eyes for a moment, recalling the laughter that had once filled this room, joyful memories now overshadowed by the mockery that had become our norm. As he opened the envelope, I felt a rush of adrenaline flood my veins. The contents lay bare before him, a revelation that could either shatter our bond or rebuild it anew. I watched his expression shift as he began to read, confusion giving way to realization. My heart raced, the stakes higher than ever as I prepared for the fallout. I should have known, he muttered, almost to himself, his voice barely above a whisper. I felt a pang of guilt hit me, realizing the weight of my silence had contributed to our distance. The air felt charged, every second stretching out as I waited for his reaction. I was afraid of how you would react, afraid of losing you completely, I admitted, the words spilling out with sincerity. But I realize now that hiding the truth only pushed us further apart. I want you to see me for who I am, not just your mother, but a woman who has fought through her own struggles. His eyes flickered with a mix of sadness and understanding, a glimmer of the connection we once shared breaking through the layers of resentment. I reached across the table, my hand trembling as I extended it toward him, a silent invitation to bridge the gap that had formed between us. For a moment he hesitated, his gaze searching mine for sincerity. I could feel my pulse quicken, the anticipation palpable as I awaited his response. Finally, he reached for my hand, our fingers intertwining in a gesture that spoke volumes. It was a small yet significant step, a promise of healing that ignited a flicker of hope within me. In that moment, I felt the weight of the envelope lift, replaced by a sense of freedom and possibility. We had faced the truth together, and now it was time to rebuild our relationship on a foundation of understanding and respect. The laughter that had once filled this room felt like a distant memory, but I knew we could create new moments, moments defined by love and acceptance, rather than mockery and derision. As I sat there, a sense of closure washed over me. I had confronted my fears and revealed my truth, reclaiming my identity in the process. This was not the end of our journey, but the beginning of a new chapter, one where I would stand tall as both a mother and a woman, ready to embrace whatever came next. The envelope was no longer a weight I carried. It was a symbol of my resilience, a testament to my strength, and I would move forward, empowered and unyielding, ready to face the world anew. The atmosphere in the dining room had shifted dramatically, a palpable tension replaced by a cautious curiosity. My son sat across the table, the envelope still clutched in his hands, his expression a mix of disbelief and contemplation. I could see the gears turning in his mind as he processed the weight of my revelations. The once vibrant colors of the room felt muted, as if the very essence of our family dynamics had been altered in an instant. I held my breath, waiting for the moment when he would finally understand the truth of my struggles. As he finished reading, a heavy silence enveloped us. I could see the flicker of emotions play across his face, confusion, regret, and finally, a dawning realization. The laughter that had once echoed in this room felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the gravity of our confrontation. I could sense the tension in the air, thick and electric, as I awaited his response. Would he finally see me as more than just his mother? "Why didn't you tell me this before?" he finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The pain in his tone struck me like a physical blow, and I felt a pang of guilt wash over me. I had kept my struggles hidden, thinking I was protecting him, but in truth, I had only created a chasm between us. I was afraid of how you would react, afraid of losing you completely, I admitted, my voice trembling with the weight of my confession. I could see the flicker of understanding in his eyes, the walls he had built beginning to crumble. This was our moment of reckoning, and I clung to the hope that we could rebuild what had been fractured. A shift occurred in the room, a subtle change that signaled a potential thawing of the ice between us. I reached across the table, my hand trembling slightly as I extended it toward him, an invitation to bridge the gap that had formed. For a heartbeat, he hesitated, uncertainty flickering in his gaze. Then, to my surprise, he reached out, our fingers intertwining in a gesture that felt both fragile and profound. As I looked into his eyes, I felt a surge of relief wash over me. This connection was a small yet significant step toward healing. It was a promise that we could face the truth together and begin to mend the rift that had formed between us. I could see the flicker of compassion in his expression, and it filled me with renewed hope. The tension in the room began to dissipate, replaced by a fragile sense of relief. We were still bound by love, despite the mockery and misunderstanding that had plagued us. I had confronted my fears, revealed my truth, and in doing so, I had taken a step toward reclaiming my identity. As I sat there, I felt a quiet strength emerging from within, a realization that I was not just a mother, but a resilient woman who had fought to build our family. The envelope, once a weight I carried, now felt like a symbol of my resilience, a testament to the strength I had cultivated through years of struggle. We had faced the truth together, and I was determined to nurture our bond, to rewrite our story with understanding and respect. In that moment, I knew we could create new memories, moments defined by love and acceptance rather than mockery and derision. The journey ahead would not be easy, but we were on the path to healing, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next. As I sat in the comforting glow of our dining room, the remnants of our family dinner scattered across the table, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. The laughter that had once echoed with mockery was now replaced by a tentative understanding. My son, who had once belittled me, now looked at me with a mixture of curiosity and respect, his expression a testament to the journey we had begun together. The weight of the envelope lay heavy on the table, a symbol of the truths we had shared and the barriers we had begun to dismantle. The floral centerpiece, once a mere decoration, seemed to embody the hope that had begun to blossom between us. I could still feel Sarah's supportive presence, her smile a silent promise that I was not alone in this fight. The air was charged with possibility, a new chapter unfolding in our family narrative. I had reclaimed my voice, my dignity, and in doing so, had paved the way for a deeper connection with my son. Reflecting on my journey, I